Okay, so now she's connected, and like I said, I always try to keep this part free so you could stabilize your left hand, and then I'm doing this with one hand. So then while you're stabilizing with your left hand, you can attach, you line up the two dark lines and twist and kind of pull to make sure it's still there. And the important part is I always clamp her closed while I'm warming her food up. Her syringe is up in the hot cup of water, and then while I'm attaching her, this is still clamped. So now that she is connected, I will unclamp it, and sometimes this leaves like a really significant indentation, and it really hinders like the flow of when you're starting to push the syringe. So I try to just I don't know how to describe it, just kind of straighten it out again. So now it looks like just the tubing is normal again. And I always try to feed with the syringe upward, and that way all the bubbles are at the top, and each line is 1. And then I kind of feed, let's see, I'll go 10 mLs. So now I'm down to 50, started at 60. And I kind of just see how she reacts, and seems like she's doing all right. And the first syringe usually doesn't matter because her belly is probably empty or close to being empty from her last feeding. So I just kind of go and watch her and just make sure she's not going to throw up anything. Because learning the hard way, when we first started doing this, we would push too fast and she was throwing up at the same speed as we were pushing. So she has definitely grown her tolerance for the syringes. So I want to show you guys at the very end of this with the air bubbles towards the end. So bear with me here while I get her going. And I still put food on her tray to either play with. A lot of times when you're not looking at her, she'll put food in her mouth. So that's another plus of doing this part and not paying attention to her necessarily. So now I'm down to 25. And I'm going fairly fast as the first syringe because I know her belly's pretty empty already, or still from the last one. So I kind of just wait, but I'm still holding the syringe up if I can. I don't see a whole lot of bubbles, maybe a little bit. And it really depends on the food, how I mix it the night before for you guys. So I try to mix the ones that don't have a lot of bubbles in it so you guys don't run across the issue. So I'm getting down to the end. And I'm still going. I do not stop here. And I'm also watching the tubing to make sure I don't see any bubbles coming through, air bubbles. It looks like it's good so far. So even at the last, looks like the last 3 mLs, there's still no bubbles. So I'm still gonna keep pushing. So now I can kind of see that a bubble just showed up. So that's not gonna bother her. But I am at the end, and I think that's all right. Like, if you're a little nervous about it, that one little bubble shouldn't bother her. Her tray's messy. So now I'm at the end, I can't push anymore, and I can see more bubbles coming. So what I do to change syringes, I'll clamp her again, because if you don't, all that stuff that you're pushing in will come leaking through this. So I'm gonna disconnect at the syringe part, get the next syringe. And this is just a cap. So this is just an old one of the bolus tubing. I'll disconnect and connect her back. Make sure that's on, because I've pushed before and that pops off and then you're squirting the tray. So then I unclamp her, move this little clamper thing and straighten that back out. Looks good. And then let's see how much. There's going to be a little bit of air that comes through, and that little portion right there should be okay too. So I can see it going in, and she shouldn't be bothered by that. But if you were to start seeing bubbles just all in this tube, then you're probably not holding it upright, or the food may have extra bubbles in it, which I try not to do to you guys. So you might have to reevaluate how you hold her syringes. But this is the second one. And I can see a little bit of the bubbles towards the top of this one. So I know at the end of this one, we'll probably have a little bit more. And she's just playing with the cap of that. It's all right. So I kind of, this is the second syringe, so I'm going to just kind of make sure she's still doing okay. It doesn't look like she's in any discomfort. Still looks like she's tolerating the feeding. So I'll just continue on. And I don't see any bubbles going through, so it looks like the food got blended really well, and also warming it up warm enough will help everything blend after it was in the fridge for a little while, or her ice pack lunchbox. And she's listening to her songs if you hear Twinkle Twinkle in the background. So now we're getting towards the end, and this is where I kind of watch for more bubbles. And I can see that big one at the top of the feeding here. So I just want to make sure that doesn't get into the tubing. So she's still doing all right. She's still playing, in a good mood. All right. So I see one little bubble that came through. Should be all right. That little one's okay. And then I want to hold it even more upright than I was when I was feeding her, so I could see that one. And I can kind of see a few more. And that one, okay, so followed by a solid stream of food. Okay, now I start to see like too many. That right there, probably I'll pull back because you don't want that to go into her belly. So I'm actually going to pull up on the plunger. And that is reverse. That's going to pull like all, see that air bubble? I'm going to pull back on the syringe, and it's going to put the air bubble back into the tube, or into the syringe. So I may not have filled it all the way to the top solid. So I feel like this one is not going to give us any more food without giving us a lot of air bubbles. So I'm going to be done with that one. And that was the second syringe. So I'm going to clamp it, disconnect, and then now we're on to the third one. And I think we had some questions about if there was a lot of air from the first two syringes, and you can't pull back on the syringe because it's already full. So what I suggested was to get the third syringe because it's half full. You could just, I don't know, she's getting restless, but let's see if I can pull this off here. You could put it on and unclamp her. Just don't forget to do that. And just pull back and make sure all those bubbles that you just saw they came out back into the syringe. So that's what you can do if you notice a lot of bubbles in the first two syringes. You can replace it with the third syringe just to give you enough room to pull back on the plunger to get all the air out. That shouldn't happen if you're holding the syringe upright. And those little bubbles aren't too bad. It's just like when you're drinking like soda or anything carbonated, oh, bless you. Or if you're chugging any water, you're going to start swallowing air. So it's okay. Like it may like give her, gas later. And it's not going to hurt her, but I just try not to do too much of it. So this is the third one. And when she's sick, this third one, I'll probably fill a little, I won't give her as much, or I may not even add a third syringe to the meal. So I just kind of play it by ear on how she feels for the day. And she's getting over a cold now, but she's been tolerating all her feeds. So I'm going to keep pushing. And sometimes when she's just not feeling good, like for that moment, she's not sick or anything, but maybe she's throwing a tantrum and just, you can't calm her down, she'll make herself throw up. So I just kind of watch her, and she's pretty calm now. She's content. So I'm pretty confident that she'll take this whole thing. But a lot of times if you think she is going to throw up, it'll happen probably towards the last 10 or 20 mLs of the syringe. So even though it was filled almost to the 40, you could still probably give her 10, 20 of this syringe before you start to like think about, okay, she's going to throw up and I don't want her to do that. So then you can probably disconnect her and be done with that feed for that meal time. But most of the time she can tolerate it. So we're just going to give her that whole thing. And even one-handed, I think this video is about 12 minutes long. So one-handed, I was able to feed her in 12 minutes versus 45 to 60 minutes on the pump. So it's definitely much better. And I'm getting towards the end. And because this is the last syringe, you're not going to be pushing anything else afterwards. I kind of just I see that air bubble and I kind of just follow it. And I'll stop the food right before it gets into her belly. Can you sit back? Sit back for me. So there you go. So we're almost done anyway, but I can see there's going to be quite a few bubbles, it looks like. And there's one right there. So I'll just keep going until right before it gets into her belly. So then that's it. And we're done. And that was almost all of it, minus 2 mLs. And then I'll just disconnect her, which is opposite of how you connected her. So you want to turn counterclockwise, line up those 2 lines again, and just pop it off. And cap her back up. And then she's all good.